In this lesson, we're going to look at solving problems involving credit. Now, with credit, we can get credit through a loan. There's a line of credit. We've got credit cards. And often, the credit cards have a very high interest rate, whereas if you can use a line of credit and you apply for that and qualify for that, then it's a lower interest rate. So what is a line of credit? It's a pre-approved loan that offers immediate access to funds up to a predefined limit, with a minimum monthly payment based on accumulated interest. A secure line of credit has a lower interest rate because it is guaranteed against the client's assets, usually property. So if you can get a line of credit for, let's say, $1,000, that means you have $1,000 that you can use whenever you need. But you need to pay that back, and you pay it back similarly to the way you would pay back a loan or a credit card. Okay. There's the Bank of Canada prime rate. This is a value set by Canada's central bank, which other financial institutions use to set their investment rates. So often you'll hear things like prime plus 1 or prime plus, right? So everyone starts at the prime rate and then adds whatever they want to that prime rate. And the prime will change depending on politics, depending on the economy, depending on lots of different things. But so it's not a static rate, it'll change. So let's take a look at example 1 and see how we can use this information to help solve some problems involving credit. It says Meryl and Kyle are building furniture worth $1,075 on credit. They can make monthly payments of $75 and have 2 credit options, so they know they can afford $75 a month. Which option should they choose and why? So again, whenever we're dealing with credit, when you go through the TVM solver, usually what you want to figure out in terms of solving your options is your interest. How much you're paying plus how much you're paying in interest. So what's the total amount that you've paid? So knowing if option A will save you money or option B will save you money. Okay. So for option A, it says the furniture store credit card, which is offering a $100 rebate off the purchase price and an interest rate of 18.7% compound daily. So similarly to what we did when we were dealing with mortgages, you have to get the rebate off first. So this is just a dollar amount, so we would take the original purchase price of $1,075 and take off the $100 discount. That's $1,000. $100 discount. Once you do that, you only have $975 left. So already you're saving money on this furniture. It's only going to cost you $975. But looking at that price, that's the initial that you see. You think, okay, option A is good. But you have to figure out compound daily 18.7%. Is this going to be a better deal? So let's put this in. We've got 18.7. PV is the amount that I'm getting my loan for, which is $975. Right? That's the credit card amount. That's how much when I swipe my credit card, $975 is going to go on there, which means that's how much I'm owing. I can pay $75 every month, and I want to pay this off. So future value of 0. Now payments per year, because they're monthly payments, that's 12. And the compounding is daily, so this is 365. So we're solving for how many payments are made. So take out your calculators and put all of this into TVM solver. Putting all this into my calculator, I get an N value of 14.6542. So what that means here is that we have 15 monthly payments. So that's fine, that tells you how long you're paying this off for, but that doesn't help us with figuring out if this is less money or more money. So the next thing we're going to do is figure out what the interest is. And we're going to go from 1 payment to the 15 payments and figure out how much interest we've paid. So leaving the cursor where it's at in your TVM solver, you go to Apps, finance, go to the interest calculator, 1 to 15, and we see that $124.20 is how much we're going to be paying extra for interest. Okay, so if you want to know your total paid, that would just be your future value, right? And that would be, let's not put an extra equal sign here, your principal plus your interest. So your principal was the $975 plus the $124.20. So you have paid $1,099.20. So the original ticket price on this furniture was $1,000, so you've paid an extra $99.20 from the ticket price, even with your rebate. Okay, let's do this for option B and see what is a better deal. A new bank credit card, which has an interest rate of 15.4%, so I'll put that in here, compounded daily, 365, but there's no interest for the first year. Okay, so what does that mean? That means for the first year, we are just paying our $75 a month for 12 months. So for the first year, we've already paid off $900, interest-free. So what's left? Well, this was $1,075 for the total cost. Oh, I said 1,000 down here. It was $1,075, so you didn't pay that much extra, right? On that amount. So take that $900 off, so your second year, all you have left to owe is $1,075 minus $900, which would be $175. So you're paying interest only on that $175. So that's what we're going to put in for PV. Okay? Because that's all that's left to put on this bank credit card, $175. We can still pay it off at $75 every month. And we want to pay it off, so a future value of 0. So if we do that, how many payments would it take after the first year to get there? So go back to TVM Solver and plug everything else in. Doing that, we get 2.38 payments. So it would take an extra 3 payments in addition to, so that's 3 extra monthly payments. Now, why am I writing extra monthly payments? Because you've already paid for the first year for 12 months, right? This is already 12 monthly payments that we've done. So in terms of time, you've got a year plus 3 months, or you've got 15 months. That isn't affecting our decisions here. It's the same amount of time using option A or option B. But now we can figure out how much interest this is. We didn't have to pay interest on the first year, so we only want to calculate the interest on those last 3 payments. So going back in here, we've got 1 to 3, and that would be an extra $3.95. So all you've paid is $3.95 in interest. So the total would be, our principal's different. It's $1,075 plus $3.95, because we didn't get that extra $100 off like we did in option A. But we got all the interest off in the first year, and we only have to pay $1,078.95. So So comparing those two values, we can see that option B is better because it's less money overall. And that's pretty much what you need to calculate. So even though it doesn't say find the interest, find the total amount you paid, and so on, right? You still want to figure out this less money overall. You want to figure out the overall cost of whatever the item is and compare which credit card. Because sometimes one will have more interest than the other, but you'll have a different type of discount. So it's important to figure out that total paid at the very end. All right, let's take a look at example 2. In this example, Ed wants to buy a car and needs to use credit to find it. The cost with taxes and shipping is $24,738. Ed wants to repay his loan in 4 years using monthly payments and has 2 credit options. So if you look down here, it says which option should he choose and why? And then we've got some things changing. So first, which option should he choose and why? We should go through both of these and see what the interest is and maybe even the total amount that he's paying. So his secured line of credit is 1.7% above the Bank of Canada rate, which is currently 0.5%. So when they give you however much is above prime, you just add those two values together. So if prime is 0.5, then you add 1.7, so the total would be 2.2%. Pretty low, which is good when you're paying back a loan. Now it says he wants to repay the loan in 4 years. So we're putting this as 4. We know how long. And we assume that these are monthly payments. So we would put 12 here and 12 here. Now it's also compounded monthly, as stated in the question. Okay, PV is the amount that we've got the loan for, $24,738, and your future value is 0 because he's paying it off. Now it does say up here monthly payments, so we didn't have to make that assumption. All right, so figure out PMT with your graphing calculator. Go ahead and punch that in, and you should get $538.86. And when you do your sum of your interest, you're figuring that out from 1 to, and this would be 4 times 12, right? Because it's the total number of payments, or you could put 48 in there. And you should get $1,127.09 in interest. Comparing that with option B, dealership's financing plan is 2.5% interest, but it says it's compounded daily. Payments per year is still 12. This is still 4 years, 12 payments per year. The loan is for the same amount, that hasn't changed. And you still want to pay it off, so future value is 0. Calculate the payments, putting that into your graphing calculator. You should get $542.14. Now remember what I'm saying, you should get, that means you should probably press pause on the video, plug this in, and double check that you're getting the same solutions. Doing the sum of the interest as well. This would again be 1 to 48, same as before. And you would get $1,284.56. Now, which option should he choose then? Well, the amount that you're initially paying is the same for both options, right? So in this case, your total would be taking that initial $24,738 plus the interest for each of them. So because the initial amount hasn't changed, we can just compare the interests in this case. But if you want to keep it consistent, then you could go ahead and figure out the total owing, right? The total amount that you've paid for that. So 24,738 plus 1,127.09, 24,738 plus 1,284.56. So looking at the totals for both of those, we can still see that option A is better. So in this case, again, you didn't have to find the totals because just comparing the interests would be enough, but it's nice to do both. So option A is less expensive. Or you could say is a better deal, if you would rather write that. And the math here shows why. Okay. For B, it says, suppose that the Bank of Canada rate changed to 1.1% after 2 years. How would this affect the line of credit payments if he still wanted to pay off the loan in 4 years? I'm going to have to separate this into the first 2 years and then the second 2 years. Because for the first 2 years, we've got 2.2%, and then for the second 2 years, we've got 1.1%. So how would that look? So for the first 2 years, we have 2 years of 12 monthly payments at 2.2% with a loan of $24,738, and the compounding is monthly. Now, the future value isn't going to be 0, right? This is actually what we want to figure out because we're going to have some money still owing. And that money still owing is going to become the PV for the second 2 years. So what value do I use for PMT? Well, we figured out in this first part what PMT should be, so you're going to use this answer here. Okay, so in this place, we're going to put in negative, don't forget to put it in as a negative, $538.86. So that's what the monthly payments are going to be for the first 4 years. Because, for the first 2 years. So for the first 2 years, you're doing exactly this, right? The same thing that we did up here. You didn't know that prime was going to change, and then it changes. So you say, okay, I've already paid off a certain amount. All I have left owing is what we're going to figure out for the future value. But I want to change my loan, so now the interest rate, or you don't want to because prime has gone up, but the bank is going to want you to because now it's 1.1 plus 1.7. So you're actually paying more in interest, but your loan changes with you. Not always, but so this would be 2.8%. So the bank's saying, well, now it's 2.8%. So whatever you have owing is now going to be calculated at that rate. This is still going to be 2 times 12, 0, 12, and 12. But we want to figure out what are our payments now that prime has gone up. So go ahead and put this into your calculator and you get a future value of $12,640.73. So that's how much you still owe. So that goes in as a positive. Punching this new table into your calculator, you end up with a payment of $542.20 per month. Now, does this affect your answer to part A? Well, do you still think option A is better if prime changes partway through? Well, for option A, what have we paid? We've, for 2 years, at 12 payments per year, so for 2 years at 12 payments per year, we've paid a monthly payment of $538.86. Then for the second 2 years, at 12 payments per year, we've paid $542.20. Now if I do this calculation, this is going to be the amount I've paid principal plus interest all bundled in together, same as what we calculated in Part A. Doing that math, I get $25,945.44. Now taking this value here that we just calculated, compare that to what we calculated for option B, and we can see that option A, even though prime changed, option A is still the better deal. Alright, well that's it for example 2. You can see, just going back to review, comparing the line of credit with the financing plan from the dealership, it's really worth it to have a look at that. This compounded monthly, compounded daily seemed to have influenced. Our rates were fairly close, but it was still lower for option A. So option A was the better deal. Now, prime sometimes changes, and in this case it did, but option A remained the better deal. Once you've committed to one option, that's sort of difficult to change partway as well. Okay, if you knew it was going to change, that would be a different story. Alright, let's take a look at the next example. We're going to skip example 3 and move on to example 4. Nikki wants to be debt-free in 5 years. She has 2 credit cards on which she makes monthly payments. Credit card A has a balance of $2,436.98 and an interest rate of 18.5% compounded daily. Card B has a balance of $3,043.26 and an interest rate of 19% compounded daily. You look at those interest rates, they're quite high, and that's comparable to what credit cards are. They might even be higher. Nikki has qualified for a line of credit at her bank with an interest rate of 9.6%, compounded monthly, much lower, and credit limit of $6,000. She plans to pay off both credit card balances by borrowing money from her line of credit. How much interest will she save? So when we're looking at this, we see that a line of credit, even though it's still not your money, right? This is still borrowed money. So she's borrowing money to pay off borrowed money. But what that means is she's taking all of the debt that she owes for her credit cards and basically putting it all on her credit line. Now, why might somebody do that? Well, because of that interest rate. So if she can use her credit line money to pay off the 2 credit cards, she's still owing money. It doesn't mean that those credit cards, well, they're paid off in terms of the credit card companies looking at that. But in terms of Nikki's bank account, she still owes that money. But now she can pay it back at 9.6% compounded monthly rather than 19% and 18.5% compounded daily. So that's going to mean that the amount that she owes in the end, hopefully, will be less. So let's try this out, consolidated and then not consolidated, and see why often people use their credit lines to pay off their credit cards. So consolidated means you take all of your debt and put it together. So in this case, we would take the $2,436.98 plus the $3,043.26, and putting that together we get $5,480.24. So that's the amount when you consolidate. Consolidate means you're putting it together, put all your debt together, now that becomes your new loan. That's how much money you want to borrow off of your credit line. So we've got $5,480.24 being borrowed from your credit line. Now she wants to pay this off in 5 years because it says at the top here, debt-free in 5 years. So paying that off in monthly payments. Okay, so 5 years making monthly payments. Now, the credit line is compounded monthly, which is nice, right? The interest rate for your credit line is only 9.6%. Paying it off, so this is 0. So let's put all of this in our TVM solver and see what we get. Doing that, we would have payments of $115.36 every month. How much interest are we paying in addition to what we already owe? So use your sum of your interest from 1 to 5 times 12, which would be 60, because you have 60 monthly payments in 12 years. Doing that, we get $1,441.55. Consolidated, so putting all your debt together using a credit line with a lower interest rate and being compounded monthly. If we did this separately, not consolidated, what would that look like? So I would like you to take your time, go through both credit card A and credit card B and fill out the TVM solver, figure out what your monthly payments are for each of those, and then figure out what your interest would be for each of those, and come back and check your answers with my answers. Alright, once putting all of that in, you can see that you have monthly payments of $62.74 for credit card A, and you owe $1,327 in interest. That's almost already what you've paid for it consolidated. And then for credit card B, you're paying $79.19 per month, and you're owing $1,708.07 in interest. So your total interest, if we add those together, total interest is $3,035.07. So if we take that, we can actually, that's a lot of interest. So how much money is she actually saving by consolidating her credit? So if we take that $3,035.07, subtract $1,441.55, she's saving $1,593.52. It's amazing. That's a lot of money saved, and she's paying it off in the same amount of time, but way less, just because she's qualifying for this credit line. So if you're in a situation where you're paying off credit cards, see, before you start getting involved with your credit cards, see if you can get a credit line. Usually they want to see that you can pay off your credit cards first, so get a couple of credit cards, use them. You could just get one even, use it, pay it off every single time, have no outstanding payments, and then qualify yourself for a credit line so that when you need it, when you start spending more money, you can have that there to help you out, right? And you can use that for other types of payments. So just writing a statement at the end explaining that she'll save $1,593.52 by consolidating her credit. How do you qualify for a credit line? Well, you need to build your credit, get a certain credit score, and that's something to talk to your bank or financial institutions to figure out what you need to do in order to qualify for that. There is one more example in our notes, but I'm going to leave that one out. So that's it for today's lesson, and we'll see you next time.